Hello, Anand. Should we begin?
Yeah, I guess we can start off. Percy, over to you.
All right. Thank you. So, before we begin, I'd like to thank one and all for attending our webinar today. This time, this is our third webinar by Abara LMS, and this time we have tried to tackle the question of how you can really solve a sales leader's problem when it comes to handling their sales team targets, revenues, using a technologically advanced platform called the learning management system. Basically, how you can improve your sales by implementing an LMS and training your sales team effectively. So before we begin the presentation, I'd like to introduce my co-speaker, Mr. Anand Timothy. Mr. Anand is the founder and visionary behind Abara LMS platform. His background and specialty lies in learning design and learning technology, and you could say he's one of the most experienced LMS consultant on our Abara LMS team, and has been working largely with clients in the US, UK, Europe, and Australia, helping them with their training needs, finding solutions that address their business challenges and their training goals. Now, he has considerable experience and success in the international market, which is why he is now more engaged with Abara in getting the Indian corporates to embrace this learning management platform system. Now, a little bit about me. My name is Percy Bengali, and I work as a senior consultant with Abara LMS. My specialty lies in problem solving, matching clients' needs with Abara's features, marketing, and creating the content that helps spread the news about Abara as a powerful platform. A little more into what we as Abara are. We at Abara have a very rich heritage and strong belief in promoting training and development as the key, or sometimes as a unique solution to corporates' problems. Abara LMS is a learning management system. It is designed and built to train a corporate workforce in a way that training and development activities become an organization-wide activity. It becomes the core of an organization, and the rich heritage that we derive comes from Enyota Learning, which is our parent company, and it has been in the industry of creating custom e-learning courses and learning technology since 11 plus years. And Abara LMS is also an award-winning system. It is recognized by multiple third-party experts, and they have reached out to us on their own after testing our system multiple times and have awarded us with quite a few accolades. So before we move ahead with the presentation, I'd just like to let all our viewers know who this presentation is really for. You can say this presentation is for sales managers and heads. You can say VP sales, director of sales, president of sales. This presentation is also for sales training managers and heads. You could say VP sales training directors, director of sales training, chief training officers, everyone who helps uh, helps the sales team learn and develop within an organization. And it is for sales trainers, that you could say HR, L&D, corporate sales trainers, in-house sales trainers. And before we continue forward, we'd also want to get a clear understanding of what are the industries impacted by sales. Retail is impacted by sales, pharmaceutical, insurance, FMCG, consumer, financial services, IT and software. These are all the most well-known industries in India that are affected by sales. Now, I'll just give a small brief into each of them and why they are different from each other. Retail in India has been one of the biggest markets worldwide for India has actually been one of the biggest markets worldwide for retail sales. Millions of people are hired by this industry, and retail sale training basically relies a lot on understanding customer interactions, prospecting, and it can be defined as the study of human behavior and psychology. Literally, a person walking into your store, understanding what intention they've entered your store with, and then converting it into a sale. That is what the retail industry thrives on. When it comes to insurance, we all know India has one of the largest populations on earth. So the market for insurance is also huge when it comes to people insuring their lives, people insuring property, people insuring their wealth. And most of us are very aware about how we quite often get calls from insurance dealers who ask us to either renew, either start a new thing, or upgrade our current insurance. When it comes to pharmaceuticals, once again, the pharmaceutical market in India is world renowned due to its ability to produce life saving vaccines at a fraction of the price offered by most countries abroad. Now, why this makes sales very competitive is because the prices of every drug and vaccine manufactured in India is low. So, you have very competitive prices that are sold at a very aggressive pace in India, especially. When it comes to financial services, from banking loans to investing in mutual funds and more, the service relies highly on the ability to harness mass stores of information. Now, everyone knows that the financial services has a lot of products. If you really look at it, when a salesperson goes out there to sell something, they have to have information about every single product, plus the benefits of it, the disadvantages of it, the different schemes that go with it. So it's one of those industries that is driven by information, especially for the salespeople. When it comes to FMCG and consumer goods, in this sector relies on identifying the likes, the dislikes, the trends, demographic likes, and the market influences that influence people at purchasing one product over the other. It is a very deep science again about understanding the factors influencing general public's decision when it comes to purchasing one good over the other. And when it comes to IT and software, finally, IT sales and software, you can say, is like the backbone of our economy right now. Everyone knows we got some of the smartest IT guys in India, and it is a combination of two things. One is your soft skill and practices, because you have a lot of lead generation guys sitting in India who are selling to both international and domestic markets. For them, something like sales could be simple because it relies just on generating leads. But IT and software sales doesn't end there. It goes more into that. The moment you have salespeople who are starting and closing a sales deal, not just generating leads, I'm talking about starting and closing a sales lead, a lot of more parameters come into this. And by that, I mean you need to have strong knowledge about the product you're selling, you need to have strong knowledge about the markets you're selling it to, and you need to have a good grasp over soft skills. Because obviously, we're not just dealing with domestic clients, we're also dealing with international clients. Also, most of the industries that I spoke to you about over here, they cater to the B2B side of sales, that is business to business sales. Now, I'd like to define one fact that sales is always driven by a strict process, and the B2B sales process goes like so. You start with the preparation and research, where you try to identify markets, the best product for it, angles of approach from which you'd want to attack a market. Then you move on to the next part, that is prospecting, where you want to identify who is a worthy prospect to pursue, who is not, based on multiple selection and prospecting criteria that you put into place. Then we have the sales pitch itself, where you present a product, its benefits, and the idea it represents, followed by a proposal, a formal proposal which is sent, where the expected asking price is sent by you along with what you are capable of delivering. And then you have objection handling, where obviously the person in the front might not agree to all the terms that you send or the asking price. So that's a very crucial part, which is called objection handling. And finally, closing the deal after a round of successful and healthy negotiation that benefits both parties. This is a healthy B2B sales process. And like I told you, we had a few sections of FMCG and we had a few sections of retail on top, those two industries. These usually have a lot of one-on-one customer facing sales process, not and which is pretty unlike the B2B sales process. What we have here is you have physical people walking into physical stores, and it starts with a welcoming. You follow it up with an understanding of what they exactly need. Then if your salesperson is wise enough or knowledgeable enough, they go on to advise the customer that probably the product they are looking for might not be the real one to solve their needs, but something else can. So that is the advice and the knowledgeable part. Then it comes to closing, where they courteously close the sales deal by not being too pushy and ensuring that the customer is in their comfort zone. It is then followed with a thank you phase, where they thank the customer and the customer feels good about purchasing a product from that particular store. And finally, handling completion. Now, we all have been through this as well, where you might purchase a good, you might go home, you might find some problem with, and you come back to the retail store with a problem. And that is where the salesperson has to effectively handle it, because that is a part of after sales. It is still a part of after sales. still a part of the sales process. So now talking about both these two processes, that is your B2B and your retail and all of these industries, when it comes to all of them, what are the most common challenges faced by these B2B sales teams? Or you could also say your retail sales teams. Well, it starts with a failure to follow a structured sales process. Now, I mentioned the sales process for B2B. I also mentioned the process for retail. That is a proper sales process that every single salesperson must follow in order to get the best out of a complete sales cycle. When there is failure on their part to follow the structured sales process, it leads to a top challenge. The second is poor lead generation and prospecting skills. Now, when you're unable to generate quality leads required to close the deal, either due to lack of prospecting skills or the ability to reach out to the right people, it is a big problem again. We then move on to post sales pipeline management. Now, this is something that plagues a lot of salespeople, where they might have created good prospects for them, but due to the lack of following up, or because the prospect simply said no one time, they do not continue to follow up with the prospect. Now, that is very poor sales pipeline management, which should ideally not be the case when it comes to sales. Then we have lack of product knowledge, and lack of product knowledge is simply cannot be handled by just experience or by shooting in the dark. Lack of product knowledge is something that requires a salesperson to dedicate time, efforts, and energy towards understanding the insides and the outsides of the product before moving into actual sales itself. Moving on, we've got poor soft skills. Now, poor soft skills is something that a person can develop with experience and multiple tries. But if training is brought into the mix, this process can be exponentially speeded up. You can really make this a very smooth process. Obviously, person can learn by trying it over and over again, but bringing training into the mix is always beneficial here. Then we've got lack of selling skills. Now, this usually signifies the absence of public speaking experience, having poor presentation skills, lacking training on sales skills like objection handling, negotiating, and how to simply close the deal. So, this is the core of any salesperson. These a few things that I mentioned over here. Uh, Having a shortage in this place just signifies the fact that your selling skills are not up to the mark. We can then go on to low closure rates. Now, you could have a lot of meetings fixed up for yourself, a lot of calls that are happening, but still the closure rates are low. Now, this is usually caused if any of the previously mentioned problems that I spoke about are the leading factors behind why they're not able to do it. For example, if the sales structure is not followed properly, it will lead to low closure rates. If your pipeline management is very poor, it's going to lead to poor closure rates. No matter how many meetings you have, it's never going to convert into anything significant. And follow that up, we have got sales pressure due to low closure rates. Now, sales pressure will obviously come on if your closure rates are low, and that's going to lead to a demotivated sales force, which is going to finally lead to a high attrition rate. Now, these are the most common challenges faced by most B2B teams that you can come across. So we know that sales is not as simple as getting up and going for a meeting and having a conversation. It requires the presence of skills, knowledge, idea, and abilities as well. So you might be asking me, or you might be asking yourself a question as to why do we need to train our employees? Shouldn't they already know how to do all of this when we've hired them in the first place? This is where things get a little surprising, or not for most people, because the Indian education system from where we are getting most of our pass outs, uh, they are not totally ready to handle something like our corporate environment, believe it or not. And this has been mentioned in many reports by respectable organizations. The biggest problems plaguing our education system right now is poor quality control. Students miss essential life skills, especially sales. The subjects covered lack real time use. There is practically no real experience being taught to them. And everyone knows that in our education system, quantity has always trumped quality. It is not about how well you write an answer, it is about how much of that answer that you've written. And this has been ingrained into each and every pass out that's coming into our corporates as well, that we are hiring actively. So there is almost no regulation in place to test the quality of students who are deemed as MBA or postgraduate worthy, frankly speaking. And degrees are handed out based on an aged method of assessment, and pass outs lack the practical application required to actually fit into our corporate environment. So this is a statistic that I've pulled up from NDTV Profit. It was a very well-known report that came out in 2016, which highlighted the problem that our graduates were facing. It simply said that we have approximately 15 lakh graduates and postgraduates. Keep in mind, graduates and postgraduates are people who are ready to be taken into corporates, and usually corporates start from there only when they start hiring employees. And out of the 15 lakh graduates that pass out, only 7% are truly employable. 50% are going unemployed, and the remaining 43% literally have to find a job that is very irrelevant to what they have taught. So you got engineers, graphic designers, and so on and so forth, software engineers who come out, they do not find any kind of job that is relevant to them because they do not fall within the 7% employable category, and they end up taking irrelevant jobs. So an engineer probably takes up a managerial management related job in a commerce field, which totally makes no sense. So that is what is happening right now. And if you look at the Indian job market, a report by Economic Times again from 2016 to 17 stated that 50% of all the jobs created in India are sales jobs distributed across all our different sectors. And 75% of the jobs available in almost 80% of organization will always be a sales related job. And the attrition percent and higher is in the Indian corporate sector. And the attrition percent and higher is in the Indian corporate sector. And also aggressively involved in selling machines and the domestic market. So you might be wondering, how does all of this statistics tie up? Well, another report released individually by Amazon stated that India has the most number of online sellers right now, and by 2020 it's going to become 1 crore online sellers. The Indian retail sellers, that is your organized plus your unorganized, consists of 4 crore employees already. So you got 4 crore retail mein organized plus unorganized sellers already doing their job. The Indian IT sales, that is your lead generation, outbound calls, selling of softwares and services, we are talking about 15 lakh employees there. And other industries combined, you got 60 lakhs. Now, how does all of this tie up? From the previous statistics that I gave you, 50% of the jobs created are sales. And the same report over there stated that 40% of the graduates are misplaced career wise. So you can kind of see the inference that I'm trying to make here. It is very likely that these 48% graduates who have probably studied something else end up by taking a job in sales. So there's a very good possibility that if you actually take a look around your very own team right now, you might realize that most of them, or at least a few of them, have no relation or background to sales. That is their education wise. They have simply taken on the job of a salesperson because that is the most easily available job right now in the market, and which creates the issue of the fact that they are not ready to take on the challenges that sales job brings with it. So there's also another statistics which says that 48% of the salespeople learn by trial and error, which is a very high percentage for sales employees to actually just shoot in the dark and hope that their uh, practice becomes perfect, which can't be accepted because it just takes one interaction between your sales employee and a prospect to probably put a negative feedback in their mind about your business, and they might never come back to you. So 48% of the salespeople doing this trial and error thing again is something that doesn't work. So from here we come to, how does the LMS really help with sales training? And for this, I'm going to bring on our co-presenter, my co-presenter, the CEO of Abara LMS, Mr. Anand Timothy, who will be taking you through this. Anand, please take this over from here.
Thanks, Percy. So if you can just make me the presenter.
Yes.
Yeah. So Percy, I hope you can see my screen right now.
Do let me know when you got it.
I've got it.
Yes.
Have you can see my screen, right? You can, right?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes,
brilliant.
I can.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So hi everybody, Anand here. So I'm the co-founder of Enyota Learning, and I also head the Enyota Learning and Abara LMS sales team. So we just looked at the context behind why sales is such an important part of the ecosystem, the job ecosystem in India, and obviously sales drives the organization, and likewise sales drives the economy as well. So essentially, if you look at the state of the overall job market as such, you can see that sales is a profile which has a lot of attrition, number one, across industries. And beyond that, obviously, because of that attrition, there is a lot of new people joining any sales team. And likewise, the need for training is extremely important. Now, if you just look at what's happening with most sales training in many industries, is either the training is done at the beginning, usually through classroom training means, wherein once somebody joins the sales team, they are given training for a few days, or maybe a week, or maybe 2 weeks before they actually hit the road, and when they are actually going out there in the field. Or vice versa, instead of classroom training, there is ad hoc training. Ad hoc training is basically you have a junior salesperson shadow a senior salesperson, and in a way they are learning on the job. They are watching how the senior person makes sales calls, how they are making presentations, etc., and basically learning, trying, and basically what Percy said, a little bit of trial and error. So they follow a few senior people around, they attend a few meetings, and then they have to hit the road themselves, and then obviously take it from there. So usually it's classroom training, or it's pretty much ad hoc training. That's the norm within the sales training market as such. So what we are really talking about is using an LMS as a sales enablement platform, wherein you organize training in a way which is a structured way, and you in a way make sure that not just training is done in a systematic manner, you ensure that everybody is being trained as per their needs as well. So the whole idea being that instead of doing ad hoc or only relying on classroom training, you in a way bring some level of automation to the entire process. So typically when a new person joins the organization, assuming that the organization has some sort of a payroll system or an HRIS system, you essentially link that HRMS system to the LMS. Both systems communicate, and based on their job roles, etc., you provide them with assessments. You assess what they really already know. Now, two things out here. One is how much they know of sales and selling skills, and the other part is how much do they know about the products and services that they deliver. Now, within the Indian industry context, what happens is typically people from certain sectors, like insurance, people who join the insurance sector, people who join, say, the financial services sector, they tend to stick around within that same sector for their next job as well. So when they switch, they will look for the next, insurance company or the next financial services company. So the idea is doing an assessment to see what do they really know in a systematic way, and based on what the gaps are in their knowledge, you really give them additional training, or you uh, train them better to be able to bridge any gaps that they may have. So the idea is that you create an onboarding program which is systematic, so that you understand what they know, what they need to know. For example, they may understand the insurance sector because they've sold for another insurance company, but essentially training them on your product, your unique value propositions, what are the key points that differentiate your products from your competitors, etc. And then you do that based on their job roles, based on seniority. For example, if somebody has come into your company without any job experience, then you would train them differently. If somebody has come from a competitor or from a similar industry, then you would train them slightly differently. So basically, put together all the training programs that you have, put them up in the LMS, and based on the experience levels, their job descriptions, etc., you provide them training in a systematic manner through the LMS. Now, obviously, in addition to what you have to train people on their own, on your own products and services and solutions. They need to understand your products, obviously. But in addition to that, there is a lot of training content out there to improve the abilities of salespeople. Now, if you just look at YouTube and you look at videos that are available on sales training, they are massive. So with an LMS, you have the ability to provide access to this kind of training content through your LMS. Now, obviously, people can go to YouTube themselves, but in a way, whatever the organization feels are good training material that is suitable for your particular organization, you can organize those links, put them within the learning management system, and get people to watch them in a systematic manner. So the idea is you could give them a video, ask them to watch a particular video, and do an assessment on that. So the idea is there is a lot of existing content out there that can be leveraged. You don't need to build fancy courses yourself, and with an LMS, you can kind of organize that content. In addition to that, you could have some internal documents that are meant for them to read before they actually get the job done. So they could be product literature, they could be existing PowerPoint decks on your product or your service, etc. They could all review this material as part of their onboarding and induction, and based on that, they could then take an assessment, and then you can measure their knowledge, what they know, what they don't know, what are the gaps, etc. So similarly, there are audio files. Suppose you want to record a session of what a suitable sales pitch sounds like, you could put that up as well. So the whole idea behind an LMS is, rather than people do things in an ad hoc manner, you can organize content that is available within your organization, outside your organization, to start to educate your sales team in a systematic manner and help build their knowledge so they are better prepared, rather than they having to just rely on ad hoc watching somebody. You organize that content in a better manner. In addition to that, you can also rely on e-learning a lot more. So the idea behind classroom training is, obviously, classroom training means that the same set of that people are attending the same session, attending a classroom training session, and then if people leave, then you're organizing a training session or a classroom training session again for another set of people. So there is no reusability with classroom training. So essentially, you've taught the same content to one batch, then another batch comes and you're teaching them exactly the same content. But basically, either getting e-learning built, you can have that reusability overall. So the idea is that you essentially invest in building that content once, and that same content can be repeated again and again. So with new batches, you would be able to reuse that same content. When somebody joins, you can say, first start off by watching or viewing these e-learning courses, attempting the assessments, and then maybe you'll do a more advanced classroom session. So the idea is not to switch to e-learning entirely, but essentially reduce the reliance on classroom training. So instead of classroom training, you'd say, suppose you had a 2-day or 3-day classroom training induction program. You can reduce that to maybe a 1-day classroom training program. So 2 days, they do it on their own. After that, they come and attend maybe a 1-day workshop for the more advanced skills that are required. And after that, they're ready to hit the field on their own. They are better prepared when they come for the classroom training session. All the basic information about the company, all the basic information about the products is covered via e-learning, and the more advanced pieces are covered in the classroom. So that's the general idea about using a blended approach instead of relying completely on classroom training. So the idea about an LMS platform is, most people look at it as that it's just about essentially online learning, where you have these fancy courses with multimedia, etc. But that's not really what an LMS is all about. I mean, that is one aspect of it. But the whole point about a blended learning program is that you, in a way, ensure that you bring some level of automation to your classroom training sessions as well. Now, what happens with many classroom training sessions, people attend the classroom training sessions, there are paper-based assessments that are done, or sometimes no assessments are done. So people are just sitting in the classroom, they're listening to whatever is being taught, and you expect them to retain it. But that's really not how the learning process works. So by just changing the blend of, how much of it is e-learning, how much of it is, you're putting the onus on the learner, and in a way they are expected to make efforts to learn the content on their own. They come to the classroom training session better prepared, and they are able to uh, handle only the advanced stuff via classroom instead of relying just on um, you know just listening to the instructor. The onus is on them to watch the videos, maybe take the assessments prior to the classroom training session. That's really what a blended learning approach is all about. One of the key aspects of why you would really put together an LMS is really about the assessments. Now, with ad hoc training, what happens is either no assessments are done, or if assessments are done at all, they are all paper based, and there's no track, or there's no way to keep track of progress, etc. By having a online assessment, whether you do that assessment before the classroom or you do an assessment before you get them ready for the job. So for example, if you have a 3-day program, and at the end of 3 days you want to measure how much they have learned through classroom or e-learning or whatever it is. So you actually conduct that assessment, and you can actually see where people are weak in what areas, and then you can either provide them with remedial training or provide clarifications via a face-to-face session or something of that sort. But the whole idea is measurement is very, very important. Quite often we assume that they know, we hope they know, and quite often that's not the case, and that's really where they suffer in the field. So by attending a 2-day or a 3-day training program, we all know that sometimes there's not enough absorption of what that is going on. That sometimes it's too much information in those training sessions, and we're not doing periodic measurements. By doing periodic measurements, you're not only reinforcing what they have learned, you're also measuring it, and in case there are any gaps, you can kind of address that early instead of having to have that conversation maybe 1 or 2 months down the road that I attended the class, but I really did not understand it fully. So you can kind of address that gap early in the process instead of later. Obviously, you can also conduct surveys where you can take feedback from the learners, whether they have understood it, whether the training program was effective, etc. So if they have any issues or challenges, they can bring it to your attention early as well. So for example, if they say they felt that particular training session was inadequate for the complexity of the subject. So suppose the subject is something that is a little heavy, maybe they can ask for more information, and they can ask for it early instead of being tossed in the deep end where they are expected to perform with inadequate knowledge. They could raise those things early rather than maybe 1 month or 2 months down the line they say that they didn't completely understand what was being taught. The other aspect about an LMS is now most LMSs out there are mobile friendly. We suggest using an LMS which has a mobile app, so that as a salesperson, salesperson is traveling a lot. They usually are in the field, and that's what's really expected from them, where they spend maybe at least 6 hours out there trying to meet up customers. If you look at the insurance sector, the banking, financial sector, or even even the IT sector and in domestic market. So people are traveling quite a bit, and they do have access to their mobile phones. If there is any information that they can access on their phone itself, which is learning material, that could be video, that could be product literature, that could be documents about the products. If you organize your training content around sales, where you have you have a document outlining the features and benefits, the unique selling proposition, how you differentiate against your competitors, you organize that content and make it available to them on their mobile phones, they will end up walking into their meetings far more prepared. By providing them this ability, instead of expecting them to remember what they learned in a classroom training session maybe a month ago or 2 months ago, that's a little too much to expect. By providing them access on their mobile phones of valuable training content when they need it, that's really what sales enablement is all about. If you look at overall their entire workflow of how you would use an LMS as a sales enablement platform. You, on an ongoing basis, you put together tests, you conduct gap analysis on an ongoing basis. So for example, if you're finding that people after 3 months are not performing as expected, you can measure where are the gaps that what they have. One clear indication of a gap would be in the actual sales performance, but to break that down into where are they struggling? Are they struggling in terms of product knowledge? Are they struggling in terms of sales skills? Do they not know? Do they struggle in closures specifically? There are different people who struggle in different areas of the sales process. Some people may not have good sales pipeline management, so they may hit their targets maybe 1 month or 2 months, but they've so focused on closing, but they've not ended up building more leads for themselves for subsequent months. So especially this could happen especially in industries where you're switching from one company to another. Then they bring their leads from their previous job into the current job. They try and close those, but they have not spent enough time in generating new leads, etc. So the whole idea behind this is focus on those areas that the people are struggling in, track the gaps that are there, and put together content that will help them do this. Now, this content could be provided via e-learning, via videos. It could even be coaching. So if you do an assessment and you see that somebody's closure skills are poor, the sales manager for that particular person can actually pull them aside and actually do a coaching session for them. But you would do that on the basis of data rather than just a feeling. So the whole idea is that you put together this cycle and this cycle of learning around an LMS, and essentially work towards building a sales culture where people value learning. They don't feel that too much is expected from them. They feel that the organization is supporting them in equipping them with the skills and the knowledge to ultimately do their job. It's not just about the sales pressure. They are being provided valuable content at every stage of their journey as they grow within the organization, and they are able to perform. The organization is basically equipping them to perform better. In some cases, I can actually align your rewards and recognition programs to this learning as well. So, for example, you bring somebody on. If you see that they've completed all their training programs on time versus others who have not completed it, you can build some sort of a reward and recognition program to recognize people who are taking the efforts to learn and obviously improve their knowledge and skills. One other way you could use the LMS as a sales enablement platform is Abara LMS has certain functionality for you as an administrator to push announcements and messages to various groups within the organization. Now, depending on what are your needs, you might want to push new product updates through an announcement. You might want to send messages to people within a particular territory in case they are doing poorly, in case there are new schemes, etc. You could actually push those messages through the LMS itself. Besides that, if there is any other valuable content that you want to share, say for example, you want to share success stories, you want to share some case studies of how the organization has helped other customers meet their business goals. So all that training content and marketing content can be actually pushed via the LMS to people, so they can learn maybe on their mobile phone itself and help them achieve their sales targets in a better way. Besides that, the LMS also has certain gamification and leaderboards within the system itself. Now, these leaderboards essentially meaning that people, as they learn more within the platform, they will get points, they may get badges, and essentially it helps create an environment where people are encouraged to learn, bridge their knowledge gaps, and improve their overall performance. And through the leaderboards, they can see how they are doing vis-a-vis other people in their team. Now, these leaderboards could be based on particular product category. Suppose people are selling a particular product, you could see where they stand versus other people who are selling that product. It could be a leaderboard for a particular geography. Say, for example, say the Mumbai city, all the people within Mumbai, where do they stand in terms of their learning performance? And this could be very useful for new batches of people that you onboard. Suppose you onboard a batch of say 20 people, and within that 20, over a period of 2 months, you can track how people have done across that particular batch and where do they stand. It's essentially, it helps build a culture of learning within the organization, and people are incentivized to try and learn more because they can see that their peers are doing as well. It just helps build a more positive work environment. Like I said, one key thing is that what we see in India is that India needs to adopt a journey towards building a learning culture. Learning is really not considered critical. Somehow we feel that through pressures and just positive and negative motivation, people will really get the job done, but that's really not the case. There are some real skill gaps, there are real knowledge gaps that need to be addressed and help sales team perform. And part of it is to get people to value that whatever the organization is trying to do to help them achieve their goals is valuable. So they should feel empowered that the organization is providing them with valuable content based on gaps in their skills, their knowledge, etc. Giving them a content, maybe assign that courses to them in the beginning, but over a period of time, you will find that people will be asking for that content. They will be saying, hey, this content really helped me. Can you provide us with additional content so that we can succeed? And over a period of time, an organization initially may have to assign courses to people and really force them to, complete their learning. But over a period of time, you will see a shift in culture where people will be requesting for training, and based on gaps, etc., you might end up providing more and more meaningful content to the team so that they can perform better. Another key aspect is you can actually link the LMS to the CRM. So the idea is the CRM, if you're using a CRM software to kind of track leads, etc., you can kind of link that with the LMS as well. So really the idea is the CRM would kind of give you a sense of where your sales teams are, how many leads are at various stages in the sales cycle. And based on that, you can also determine where are the gaps that are there. Are they struggling with lead generation? Are they struggling with making effective presentations? Are they struggling with closures, etc.? So based on that content, you can kind of feed them additional learning material. Suppose there are new people in the system, they're setting up enough meetings, but they're not really getting them to closure, as Percy mentioned. So that's one area that you could specifically tackle based on data that you see from your CRM. So that integration will kind of help you build some triggers within the LMS to provide them access to more content to be able to kind of help them bridge their training gaps. Like one of the key things that Percy mentioned was that essentially out there, sales jobs are the maximum. So you'll see a lot of jobs for sales being advertised throughout the year across various industries. And one of the reasons is because a lot of times sales has this pressure associated with the job. Fundamentally, all sales teams are under pressure. And part of that pressure is little unrealistic pressure, partly because people are not trained, people are not equipped, people are not trained in their industry, people are not trained on their own products. So you are pushing people in the deep end time and time again, and essentially that in some cases that results in pressure which people can't take, and that's the reason why you have attrition in the first place. So in a way, this becomes a vicious cycle. People are not trained, people are not equipped to perform, and hence they leave. And if they leave, they join another organization, and the cycle starts all over again. I think a lot of organizations understand that there is a need for training, but that training usually happens at the beginning. There's either some sort of induction done through classroom training or ad hoc on the job training where you're shadowing some salesperson, but it's not in a systematic manner. So what happens is they've learned a lot in the classroom, but 3 months later they've forgotten half of it, and they're back to resorting to trial and error methods. What Percy rightly said, 48% of people use trial and error in their sales. So even if there is a systematic sales process that is in place, what they will end up doing is trying to wing it and try and meet their by just having a good presentation. They feel the sales will be closed, but that's not the case. There is a systematic process to be handled. There is a systematic sales process that needs to happen, and by putting together the content and the content for them to follow that systematic sales process and helping them at every stage of that sales process is really how organizations can bring the attrition levels down for sales teams. Because ultimately, if you have success, people will stay longer, and helping people get that success is really what sales heads and sales training managers have to focus on. This is an interesting statistic from ASTD. If you look at how many people leave after formal training is provided and how many people leave when informal training is provided. Even informal training is provided, essentially it means that you are providing some sort of training. It's not systematic, it's not organized, and largely it's a hit and miss. So some good people may absorb that training, some people may not, and largely it creates that pressure which essentially may result in attrition. The whole idea behind formal training is that when you provide systematic formal training, attrition comes down. I think there would be hardly any sales teams in India or in the world where attrition is not a problem. It's the one function that has the maximum amount of attrition, and data has clearly shown that the more systematic your training process is, the less you will have attrition. The other way to really use an LMS is really to build a career path for them around training. So the idea is when somebody joins the sales team, you have your training organized and in a way help them build a career path within your organization. Now, in this particular case, we are looking at the roles of maybe a sales representative and maybe a sales manager. That could be an assistant manager, etc. By providing them systematic training so that they can complete their learning activities as a sales representative, and after a period of time, once they have had the opportunity to demonstrate those skills on the job, maybe a year, maybe 2 years, they have the opportunity to move ahead into the next phase within your organization. So the whole idea is they may join as a sales rep, but by providing them the training and the support in various areas, firstly about the company, about the products that they are selling, actually invest in the salespeople in terms of selling skills, focusing on sales process, etc. And over a period of time, you can also provide opportunities to the more promising salespeople on areas for future advancement. So, for example, people who are doing well in their job, you may give them future training opportunities. You can teach them about how to handle a team, give them training on team management, team motivation, hopefully grooming them to take on a more senior job, maybe become a team lead, etc. So that's how you would really use an LMS to build a learning path around various career roles or career opportunities that may exist within your organization. So that's it from me. I think over to you, Percy.
All right, Anand, thank you for that. Could you share the screen with me?
Yeah, I've made you the presenter.
All right, thank you for that. So just give me a second. So can you see my screen now?
Yeah, Percy, I can see your screen, but you're on slide 30. Yeah. That's right.
All right. So, yes, perfect. So, as Anand mentioned, training within the organization and specifically sales. Now, these are things that can become a very haphazard thing to train in, because there are so many different bits and pieces to cover. But by implementing an LMS, you can get things streamlined. It's like it's about creating a
Huh.
So really, if you go to see the West out there, organizations in the West have implemented the LMS back in the year 2000. They have been vigorously and rigorously being using the LMS to do all sorts of training, not just sales training. Every single department in their organization that they feel requires training, the LMS has been used to provide them with it, and this has given them such outcomes as you can see here. Uh, why this works is because the LMS is a continuous training process. This is the reason why those figures that I showed you there make sense. Now, if you got just a one day activity or a week long activity, as said by Anand, it's not going to stick with your learners. You train them once in a classroom setting. It all depends on the kind of mood and the kind of freshness that your learners are capable of understanding everything, whether they are capable of understanding everything, whether they are capable of understanding it all. What the LMS instead does is that it provides a platform where the same learners can go and learn the same thing that you were originally teaching in the classroom, but at their own time and convenience in a continuous manner. So I can go and train myself on a single module n number of times, multiple times, till I feel that I'm a master of it, and till I feel that I'm good to go to the next module, learn that, and then proceed ahead. There is a regular inflow of new sales employees is also here, because again, the classroom training is provided once, but the LMS allows you to train your new employees over and over again. So you got one employee joining or a batch of new employees joining. It keeps training them over and over again without you having to worry about getting the whole trainers in place and all of that. So it is really a wonderful system to have, especially for a new salesperson getting to know their products and services. They don't have to rely on a third person to go to every time to get some information from them. They don't have to wait for you to provide them with physical form of classroom training. All they have to do is get their login details in place, log into the LMS, and just learn whatever they need about their products and services, your products and services that they need to sell. And come in from the graduations or post, but spotlight in sales is what the process are, what is needed from them, and how they should go about achieving this. So this is something that we always tell as an LMS consultant. We always tell our clients that when it comes to implementing the LMS, it is you who is the master, and it is you who have to give your employees a slight nudge towards saying, okay, you know what, this is something that's going to benefit you. So you should really go ahead and make good use of this. And when organizations have done that, they've seen the results that I've shown you there, 40% increase in revenue, decrease in employees are hesitant in the start, but a small nudge from your end will definitely push them in the right direction. And even if the nudge fails on your end, most of the times, you might not realize, but most of the times the pressure of sales or the feeling of disappointment because they were not able to close something will definitely lead them towards taking up training on their own. It is human psychology. As they realize the pressure is mounting on their head, as they realize that they need to really perform, they themselves will take the LMS by its hand and go for it. So that is where the beauty in the system lies. You can tell your employees to go and onto the LMS system and start the training, or they can do it on their own the moment they realize that yes, I do need training. That is the part where self-realization comes into picture. So in conclusion, at Abara we have helped countless corporates formalize their training activities. Our LMS, just to give you a small summary of what our LMS totally and exactly is, it is a mobile friendly LMS. It is something that allows you as an administrator to easily upload and store e-learning courses. It consumes very less bandwidth if you open it on a phone as a mobile app. In fact, it's just 10 MB and below when it comes to you installing it on your learners' phones. It provides comprehensive reporting functionalities. I mean, the kind of reports that you can really derive from the assessments you carry out is beautiful. You can really get good insights into which employee is facing difficulty in what part of the sales process. Are they facing difficulty with the emailing process? Are they facing difficulties with the cold calling process? You can get a whole idea of that by just putting in assessments for each of these processes in place. So as they go about completing one assessment to another, you can really understand what their strong points are, what their weak points are. And Abara is one of those systems that helps you easily do this, which is why, like I told you, we are one of those systems that has been awarded and accoladed multiple times by third party vendors. Another thing is that the LMS allows your subordinates. Now, many of you being at the topmost position will obviously have subordinates who work under you, and they control your sales team while you control them from the top. So what the LMS really does is it allows you to give power to your subordinates to control their individual team members. So at a micro level, your managers know how to control their salespeople. They know exactly what is going wrong with whom by implementing this LMS, and the LMS gives them reports saying that, this part of this member of your sales team is facing issue with a certain point, whereas another member is facing an issue with another point. So it also acts as a team building activity between your manager and and his subordinates, where he knows exactly how good his subordinates are. And it also provides your salespeople with a tool that can be used on the field. Like I told you, it's a mobile friendly device. The best part about it is that you can carry information, and trust me, it's an information power bank in your pocket for your salespeople. They can practically just pull out the LMS in front of their customers and show them a presentation if that is what something that you've stored on the LMS for them to utilize. So it is very, very versatile. And also, finally, a small thing but a very important thing, it's also a compliance platform that you can put in place for your sellers. Many times sellers do get carried away in the flow and end up probably mis-selling or misquoting your product. So a compliance platform, as in, it keeps your sellers in check. It lets them know what is allowed and what is not allowed by them when it comes to representing your product, and it takes a test and assessment on that as well. So with that, we have come to the end of this presentation, and I will be now taking any questions from any of you. If you all have something on mind, please do type it into the question box and send it over to me. I will be more than happy to answer them. Okay, we have someone typing something in. Okay, all right. So we've got a question. It says, can salespeople upload their pitch and sales emailers? All right. So yes, the LMS is very capable of doing that as well. Now, in this case, it's a very good question. How do you really assess whether your salespeople have got their pitch in place or whether their emails are correct? You can't really sit with them on a one-on-one basis and take that, right? what you can in fact do is that they can upload their sales pitch from start to end in one go, upload it onto the LMS in an easy format as an ability to answer a question, and send it over to your administrators, who can really go through all of these videos one by one and see which salesperson is performing their sales pitch the best. And the real beauty in this lies that once you as an administrator have identified a certain member of your team who has given a really nice sales pitch on video, he can then turn that video into a shareable content, where he can share that content with other salespeople, saying that this person has done a really good job at giving a sales pitch. You can now all have a look at it. So it is very versatile in that way. We also have another question, a quick one, that is, can the LMS be used to train resellers and third-party sellers of the organization? That's another good question. Yes, it can also be used to train resellers. Now, I know most of you guys might also have resellers as a form of sellers, where third-party people are selling your products. The LMS has a feature called as a multi-tenant window, where people who are outside your organization can log into the LMS via their dedicated login portals. You can provide the very same exact sales training that you're giving your in-house sales team to these external agencies. They can train themselves on your products and services, and they then go on to represent your product in the perfect light as possible. And finally, we have one more question, and that is, all right, how light is the mobile app? So the mobile app is extremely light at 10 MB. Furthermore, it works in offline mode also, so I'd want you guys to know that. And it also supports traveling salespeople, because obviously offline means you're coming in and out of range, so it does good. All right, so that should, we are also out of time now, and that would be the last question that I can take. But all the rest of the questions that you all have put down, I will be sure to get back to you personally on that. And that would be it on my end, Anand.
One sec. I think there's a question from somebody. Yeah, I see a couple of others. Yeah, yeah. I think somebody has asked some questions about specifically the hospitality sector. I think what we can do is, since we are out of time, we'll reach out to them specifically, reach out to them individually, and take that up there. I hope that's okay, but because we're really short of time at the moment. Yeah,
Makes
we've made a
sense.
note
Makes
of
sense.
those questions, and we'll reach out to them individually.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes,
Thanks a
we will.
lot.
Thank you,
Okay.
Anand. And
Bye.
thank you one and all for attending
Bye.
our webinar. We shall keep you updated with more of our webinars, and do join us for that as well. Have a great day, guys.
Yeah.